Yo, if you lie in this group of people, if you relate to what I just said, fucking shame on you, man. What the fuck are you doing, dude? With no purpose in my life, I saw no reason to keep doing the good habits. I broke out of my routine. I changed my plan. I changed the course of my day without even consulting myself, without even planning ahead, without even accounting for the change that I was doing. I had started out having a great time on these platforms. I had started out really enjoying myself when I was on them, but now I hated every second of it. I hated these apps. I hated myself when I was on them. I asked myself, why am I opening Amazon first thing in the morning? It took me a minute to remember that this is exactly where Instagram used to be on my phone 8 months earlier. It doesn't get spookier than that. What's up, everybody? For those of you who are new here, let me give you a quick recap of what the past 8 months on self-improvement, 1 month before that. For those of you who are new here, let me give you a quick recap of what the past 9 months have looked like for me. We start at November 2021, hands down hands down, the single worst month of my life. For a variety of reasons, the biggest one being that I had experienced what life could be like. I had experienced what life with purpose, life with meaning felt like. So I had given the GMAT recently, about a month earlier, and for the past 4 or 5 months before that, this had been the number one priority of my life. This was the first time in my life I set a goal, set an ambition for myself to score brilliantly at it, to excel at it, to get a score that would amaze everyone, including me. So once I got done with GMAT, which by the way I ended up fucking excelling at, dude. I ended up getting a score more brilliant, more spectacular, more outstanding than I could have ever imagined. I ended up fucking nailing that shit, just in case you were curious. But once I got done with it, it was like I lost all purpose in life. I lost any meaning to my life. Over the past few months of working towards my goal and being productive for most of my days, I'd picked up a lot of good habits. But now that I'd gotten done with my purpose, now that I had lost my purpose, let me just put it this way. With no purpose in my life, I saw no reason to keep doing the good habits. Let me tell you what an average day looked like for me. After snoozing the alarm at least 2 to 3 times, I would finally wake up, grab my phone, turn off the alarm, and not put the phone down again. I had been off of Instagram for the entirety of my GMAT prep, so I was really excited to download the app again. And it had become a ritual of sorts that as soon as I turned off the alarm, I would unlock my phone, open up Instagram, and start scrolling. Once I got bored, looking for some novelty, I would open up YouTube Shorts and start scrolling through that now. I would take a shit, still scrolling, brush my teeth, still scrolling. I've talked about this before, that by noon, my achievement for the day would be that I got done with breakfast and maybe half a movie. The rest of my day would also go by in exactly the same way. I would alternate between Instagram and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and Netflix and Call of Duty. Every waking second of my day would go by alternating between these apps. I remember I would get bored of one of them and I would pick up the other. I would get bored of watching YouTube videos and I would start scrolling through YouTube Shorts. If I was watching a movie on Netflix and I had to go take a piss, I would make it a point to grab my phone and start scrolling through Instagram Reels. Bro, 10 seconds of taking a piss I couldn't do without bombarding my brain with this shit. Yo, if you lie in this group of people, if you relate to what I just said, fucking shame on you, man. What the fuck are you doing, dude? I remember still somewhat holding on to my good habits up until the end of October. I would go to the gym a couple of times a week. I would meditate for a bit every now and then. I would eat. I wouldn't overeat most of the times. But then came the 1st of November. For the life of me, I cannot remember what had happened. But I think it was my rotator cuff that I'd fucked up. I injured it so bad, I couldn't move my shoulder, I couldn't move my arm for the rest of the day. I think it was that, I'm not sure about that. But something had happened, and I'm sure I was being a little over dramatic, but I said, I am not doing this anymore. And I went all in with that lifestyle. The day that I described, from the 1st of November to the end of November, every single day went exactly like this. The month of November, I didn't do one good habit. I didn't spend 1 minute productively. I remember by around the 20th of November, I had gotten sick of this lifestyle, dude. I had lost all the self-love, all the self-respect that I had developed over the past multiple months. I had started to fucking hate myself. I think it was the 20th when I decided that I did not want to, or that I could not live my life like this anymore. I decided to set a long-term overarching goal for myself again, and I decided to give myself the satisfaction, the fulfillment, the joy, the pride that I got out of striving towards that goal on a daily basis again. The very next day, I woke up and nothing. I changed absolutely nothing about my day. From opening up Instagram the second I woke up to passing out to a show at night, I didn't change a single thing about my day. And I did the exact same thing the next day, and the next, and the next. I didn't get shit done for the next 10 days. Every single night I would go to sleep telling myself, requesting myself, begging myself to please have a productive day the next day. And then the next day would go by in exactly the same way. The last days of the month were terrible for me. I have talked about it in previous videos, and I'll link a video over here where I talk majorly about my fight, my battles with drug addiction, which was at its worst during this month. So if that sounds relatable to you, please check the video out. I promise you it will help you. Skipping past these few days, it took me to decide to go on a complete dopamine detox to finally rid myself of these addictions. Not just the drugs, but also the social medias. I cold turkey quit Instagram and YouTube and Netflix and my video games, all of it, because I realized that these technologies were much stronger than I was. I realized that they have this massive advantage over me, that they understand, they know how my brain works better than I know how it works. They have spent millions and millions of dollars figuring out exactly how to keep us on their platforms for as long as they possibly can. And that means making us do something that we don't want to. We don't want to spend our entire lives hooked to these platforms, mindlessly scrolling through and binging their content. We have dreams and ambitions, we have goals and objectives, we have things we want to do, we have things we want to achieve. But these platforms have developed and evolved to the level that they have the power to make us put all of that aside and just spend our entire days consuming. So I spent the entire month of December completely detoxing from all technology. And it was the greatest, most productive month of my entire life up to that point. Full disclosure, since January, I have been spending about 30 to 45 minutes a day on YouTube. Sometimes a little more, but never more than an hour. Now, I'm not here to defend that or argue about it. I personally feel that this 40 minutes a day on average helps me more than it hurts me. I feel that it helps me get a new perspective on things. It helps me get a new point of view on things. If I'm constantly in my own loop of thoughts, it's very easy to adopt a very narrow-minded approach towards things. But when you're able to get other people's opinions on the same subjects, especially when those people are people that you look up to, it can really help you get a well-rounded, get a holistic perspective on the same things. So that has been the extent of my social media exposure over the past 8 months. Now this brings us to 2 weeks ago. It was the last day of my most amazing, most productive week as of yet to date, my greatest week ever. So on this Sunday, the last day of my most productive week, I decided to finally give the IELTS. We need a little context over here. I had applied to University of Sydney for my postgraduate and had recently heard back from them with an acceptance, but a conditional offer. The condition of which was that I give the IELTS and I get a decentish score on it. Not a big deal. I knew that it wasn't going to be too difficult, but I had been putting it off because I didn't want to compromise on my videos. Now on this Sunday, I had 4 videos fully done, ready to upload, and I have been uploading on a weekly schedule, so I had a month's worth of content ready to go. So I decided to take a small break from making videos and get done with the IELTS. I took the entire week to prepare for it and gave the exam on the next Monday, both of which went by brilliantly, the prep as well as the exam. Came back home and downloaded Instagram again for the first time after like 8 months, for the first time since November. So I downloaded Instagram at like 12 p.m. and the rest of the day is a blur. I'm not kidding. I can pinpoint to when what happened throughout the day up to that point, But after that, I just remember, the last thing I remember properly is that I downloaded Instagram. After that, the next thing I know, it's time for dinner. After dinner, I sit back down on my bed. The next thing I know, it's 2 hours past my bedtime. I had not stayed up past my bedtime for this long in the last 8 months. But I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed myself. I really did. I had a really great time. I enjoyed myself much more than I could have expected to by scrolling through a screen for hours on an end. Even after spending my entire day doing just that, even after realizing that it was 2 hours past my bedtime, it took everything in me, it took all of my self-control, it took all my willpower to finally put my phone aside and go to sleep. Next morning, I wake up still a little groggy, still a little disoriented from my sleep, still not completely consciously aware. And in that state, I unlock my phone, I scroll to the second page, and I see my thumb hovering over the first app from the left side on the third row. I see Amazon over there, and I ask myself, why am I opening Amazon first thing in the morning? It took me a minute to remember that this is exactly where Instagram used to be on my phone 8 months earlier. It doesn't get spookier than that. I tell you this with utmost confidence. I tell you this for a fact. There already is quite a bit of research on how bad social media apps are for our brain. I tell you for a fact that we aren't even close to realizing the full potential of how bad these apps are gonna fuck our brains up. Social media as an entire concept is way too new a thing for science to even be able to comprehend the grasp that it has over our brains. I promise you, over the next 5-10 years, it is going to be common knowledge that the impact that we thought social media has on our brains was just a fraction of the impact that it actually has. At the time, I didn't make much of the fact that I was subconsciously hovering over where an app used to be on my phone 8 fucking months ago. The fact that my subconscious remembered that this is where this app used to be, that this is what I used to do every morning. For the first time in the last 8 months, I laid on my bed for the next half an hour after waking up, scrolling through Instagram. I went and took a shit, still scrolling through my phone. I brushed my teeth, still scrolling through my phone. I came out and within a couple of seconds decided that I was gonna take it easy, that I was gonna continue my rest day. This was not the plan. The plan was to take the rest of the day off after giving my exam and get back to the grind the very next day, get back to making my videos. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that if there's one thing I'm diligent about, if there's one thing I'm strict about, if there's one thing I'm extremely particular about, it's my routine. I cannot falter from my routine because I know the extent, the depths to which I can fall. I know I'm probably going to end up saying this phrase about 100 times more through the course of this video, but for the first time in the last 8 months, I broke out of my routine. I changed my plan. I changed the course of my day without even consulting myself, without even planning ahead, without even accounting for the change that I was doing. So I skipped my morning stretching. I skipped meditation. I skipped deep work. I skipped the gym. Now, generally at noon, I like to take a little time to reflect, to assess how my day has gone so far, what I plan to do for the rest of the day, but mainly on most days, to consciously feel gratitude for myself, to thank myself, because I remember what my mornings up to noon used to look like. And now I'm usually done with about 5 hours of productivity by noon. So I make it a point to thank myself for it. But on this day, it took me less than a minute to reflect upon the entire morning because I hadn't done shit. I asked myself if this is what I wanted to be doing. If I could have found out first thing in the morning that this is how I would spend my entire day up to noon, would I be okay with it? The answer was an absolute fucking no. I decided to get myself back on track. I decided to get back to my routine. I decided to get back to ideating and recording. I decided to get back to the grind. 45 minutes later, I had been sitting in front of a blank page for the past 45 minutes. For the life of me, I couldn't come up with a single idea that I thought I could expand upon, that I could talk about. But it had been a while since I'd done this. It had been more than a week since I had sat down and ideated for a video. So I thought I might just be a little rusty. And after about 45 minutes of trying, I called it a day and spent the rest of the day on social media again. But this night, I made it a point to go to sleep on time. I promised myself, I decided that I was going to have an amazingly productive day the next day. Next day, the exact same thing happened. I tried for a bit. I couldn't do anything, got frustrated, got exhausted of trying, gave up, spent the entire rest of the day on social media. One day turned into two, two into three. Before I knew it, my cheat day turned into a cheat week. I had started out having a great time on these platforms. I had started out really enjoying myself when I was on them, but now I hated every second of it. I hated these apps. I hated myself when I was on them. I've done some research on both of these aspects. Let me share with you my findings. Firstly, I was intrigued, I was fascinated by the fact that I got sucked into this wormhole instantly. I completely dove deep into it instantly. Like, why did this happen? The answer in one word is dopamine. These apps stimulate our dopaminergic pathways, and what does dopamine do? Dopamine seeks novelty. Dopamine looks for new experiences, new things. Take drugs, take chocolates, take fast food, take anything that affects the dopaminergic pathways in similar ways, and you'll see that the timeline of all of these things, the timeline of how they affect you, will all look very similar. For example, with drugs, the first time you take a drug, you'll never experience a high like that again. The first time you take it, the high is the greatest. The more times you keep taking it, the satisfaction, the dopamine that is released from partaking in that one activity goes down and down and down. Similarly, when I opened up Instagram after 8 months for the first time, the dopamine release was unbelievable, was through the roofs. And like with sustained and continuous drug use, the more I kept using these apps, the lesser satisfaction I got out of using them for a constant period of time. So I needed to use them more and more and more to derive the same amount of dopamine. So when I opened Instagram for the first time on Monday after giving my exam, this is what my dopamine release looked like. And with every few hours of usage, the amount of dopamine that got released from an additional hour of time on Instagram kept going down and down and down. So the amount of time that I needed to be on the platform to release that amount of dopamine kept going up and up and up, and the amount of cravings kept increasing and increasing and increasing. Does that sound like anything else you've heard of before? Social media is the most popular, the most widely consumed drug available today. And I wouldn't be so sure that it's any less harmful than the mainstream drugs. I had almost given up. I had almost accepted defeat in this fight, in this battle against social media. I had almost accepted that this enemy is way too strong for me. But about a week in, I remembered that I had fought this exact enemy 8 months ago. I remembered that I had defeated this exact enemy 8 months ago. And I decided to use the same strategy. I mean, why fix what's not broken, right? I went on a dopamine detox. I deleted Instagram, I deleted my video games. I've kept YouTube around because I honestly believe that I have the self-control to make sure that I utilize this resource more than I waste it, that the net effect is a positive. I've been at it for a week now, and I can honestly tell you I've never been happier. I have regained multiple hours of free time in the day. I have regained my self-control. I am back on my routine. I have rid myself of this terrible, terrible addiction. And most of all, my mental health is as good as it ever has been. It really is as simple as that. I realize the irony of making a video asking you to watch lesser videos, but what else am I going to do, man? How else am I going to reach you? I have accepted that this enemy is way too powerful now, that it's all powerful, that it has conquered the entire world. We have no other means of communicating with each other. What more proof do you need? This enemy has already defeated all of us. This enemy has already conquered the entire world. But the good thing is that we can revive ourselves. We can pick ourselves up. We can build ourselves back up stronger to fight the enemy again. We can no longer save the world from it because most people don't even want to be saved. The best thing we can hope for is to build our community where each of us vow to save ourselves as well as our brothers from the enemy. Join me in this battle against our common enemy. Or better yet, go on a dopamine detox and slay this son of a bitch yourself. I wish you all the best in this lifelong battle against the immortal enemy. And I'll see you in the next one. Or whenever you return from your detox.